Hi there. So, have you ever thought about what shoes you should be wearing when you're rowing, or whether you should be wearing gloves, and maybe other questions rowing related? Well, I'm going to talk about them today while I row for 21 minutes on this lovely rowing machine, and then I'm going to tag on a 4-minute cool down on the end. And what I advise you to do is to sit on your rowing machine, row along with me, listen to what I have to say, possibly ignore it all and do what you want anyway. It doesn't matter because you'll still get a good workout out of it. How clever is that? So if you do it at low stroke rate, low intensity, it's 25 minutes, I'll just get the heart rate up a little bit, breathing rate up a little bit, and it's really good for you. Or you can, of course, you can go eye-bleedingly fast if you want to. I mean, don't row until your eyes bleed, but eye-bulgingly fast maybe. Danger. But yeah, so that's the plan. I do this every day, every weekday. It's called the RowAlong Daily Workout. If you're new here, hi, how are you? And they're just so good for you doing these workouts. And this week I'm going to call Review Week, where I'm going to basically talk about stuff that's rowing related rather than just talking about plans and things in my life. I'm still going to talk about my life, but that's what I'm going to do, all right? So enjoy the row. You could even just like sit there with a cup of coffee over your lunch break and listen to my views on shoes for rowing, not like, hey, buy those expensive ones with the red soles. What? Why? Anyway, right, let's get a machine set up. Let's get rowing. So go to drag factor, resistance, whatever you have on your machine, and set it to where you get a nice connection to the stroke. You feel it, but you don't have to tug and push and sort of pull really hard against it, okay? It's about pushing with the legs. Fluff my line there, sorry. And then for the seat, so I want you to sit more towards the front of the seat, more towards the front of your backside, rather than the back of the seat and the back of your backside. This is how you watch telly, nom 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 with your popcorn. This is how you row, okay? Much more kind of primed and ready for the stroke. For your foot stretchers, I want you to set them to a height where you're able to come into the front of the machine with your shins in a vertical position comfortably. Now, I'm in size 10 Converse, and I have one hole showing coming up at the top of the foot plates. So if you're in size 10 shoes and you have 3 or 4 holes showing, chances are your feet are too high. So the ballpark here is that the strap covers the balls of your feet, the kind of widest part of your feet. So set it there for comfort and then, set it there, then adjust for comfort as necessary. That's a line I keep fluffing up. Anyway, and then finally, for the handle, we're gonna hold that shoulder width with our fingers hooked over it, rather than a really kind of narrow, kind of clenchy grip. We're gonna get back to that when we come to the gloves part of today's chat. So we're gonna start off at a really nice low intensity, just to kind of build up even to that 5 out of 10 resistance. Sorry, something got my eye just then. So we're just gonna start off nice and easy, build up. I'll talk a little bit about technique, and then I'll get into kind of the main topic of today's chat. So if you're ready after this ridiculously long intro, we'll get going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. You know, there's about 3 or 4 occasions in this morning's intro where I thought I should really just start again, but I'm not a quitter. I've got around about 45 minutes between waking up, having a cup of coffee, and then starting work that I squeeze these workouts into. So I don't really have time to stop if I mess up my opening take. It's the benefit of still working from home. I mean, COVID, the global pandemic, was a terrible thing, but the fact that I was then able to continue to work from home afterwards has been a real benefit, mentally as well as just my output from work. Anyway, right, so we're building into, even as much as I'm saying low intensity, 5 out of 10, you want to make sure, and if this is, like I say, I've just had a cup of coffee and replied to emails, so my body has done like no exercise. So for the first few minutes, you want to just ease into the workout. Unless, of course, you've done a separate warm-up beforehand. But I use, at the first 3 or 4 minutes, even of a shortish workout like this, I still use the first 3 or 4 minutes to allow my body to warm up and ease off into the stroke before I start asking a bit more power from it. And so just think about arms straight, forwards tilt as you come into the front of the machine, and then pushing your feet into the machine first. So think about pushing the machine away from you. Keeping your arms straight, trying to hold that forwards tilt, and then only pulling at the back of the stroke. So as you warm up, just thinking about arms and body angles is usually enough to make sure that you're not doing anything horrendously, what's the word? Not wrong, because that's too negative. I almost came up with inappropriate, but that's definitely not the right word. Ideal. Let's go for ideal. And so now we hit 3 minutes. You can start to think about more kind of finesse to your technique, because hopefully your heart rate has climbed a bit. Hopefully your breathing rate has climbed a bit. And what you're looking for is to get to a point where you're breathing a little faster than if you were just sitting watching a movie, but you can still hold a conversation. That's kind of the intensity. That's the best way to gauge how much effort you should be putting in here. If you've got a heart rate monitor and you know your heart rate zones, then you're aiming for zone 2, and should be, if I check my heart rate, yeah, so I'm the bottom end of zone 2 right now as we hit 4 minutes. It'll climb a little bit through the course of this workout, but I don't want it to get too high. So although I'll start increasing the pressure, take my pace up from 210 to probably more like 2.6, 2.5. If I see my heart rate start to spike too high, I will ease off. The value of this workout is from it being low intensity. Something I've talked about a lot and I will return to, but we have other things to talk about today. So as I start to think about technique, this is where I can start to think about pushing a little harder. Don't worry, I've not forgotten about shoes and gloves. I just want everybody to be rowing the best they can before I start talking about something else. So I'll make this quick though. Starting at the back of the stroke as the handle comes into your chest. The first thing is that I don't want you to hold the handle against your chest. If you look at me, you'll see it comes in and then I instantly let it come away. And let it come away is the important phrase there, because all I'm doing is relaxing my arms. I'm not pushing my arms away. I'm not rushing the handle forwards. I just relax my arms, and a combination of the muscle tension releasing and the elastic under the machine that has a slight pull of the handle forwards, and probably neuromuscular memory that my body just knows that when I pull a handle in on a rowing machine, it's meant to come forwards again. But anyway, the handle comes forwards without me forcing it. Okay, so in and then instantly out. As the handle comes out, I want you to reset your posture. So sit up on the seat, up, and then as the handle comes away from you and you sit up, usually that triggers your forwards tilt to a 1 o'clock angle. If it doesn't, then just think about it and get to 1 o'clock. So handle away, sit up, tilt forwards, and then roll by bending your knees. So you make sure arms are straight and you're pretty much in that forwards tilt before you bend your knees. If you bend your knees first, you're doing it the wrong way around. So take a look, make sure the handle is past your knees before you do that bend to roll to the front. Then roll in until shins are vertical. Keeping arms straight. Maintaining that good posture. Holding that forwards tilt to the front. And then brace your core. Now that just means like light tensing. It's not like you're about to get punched in the gut. Breathing out is usually enough to do it. So you come in and go, or if you still can't quite get used to that, I say nowadays to be a snake. So you make a T SSSS noise into the front. So your tongue is between the teeth and you're making a noise. That is enough to kind of just engage your core. Then push the machine away with your feet. So just think about sending the machine through the wall in front of you rather than thinking about trying to get your body to the back of the machine. Because if you're thinking about getting back, you're more likely to pull too soon or to open up your hip angle too soon. You want to hold straight arms and a forwards tilt as you push the machine away. And then when you're about halfway through your leg drive, that is when you finally open up your hips. You go from that forwards tilt, swinging your torso from the 1 o'clock forwards to 11 o'clock backwards. And then when you're about halfway through that backswing, that is when you finally pull the handle in to a finish. And what you want to think about is pulling with your elbows, not your hands. If you just send your elbows through your sides, you'll stay connected to the power all the way to the finish. And then you can squeeze your shoulder blades together like you are crushing a tin can, or this is how you're squeezing the lemon for your G&T. But you want to keep wrists and forearms as flat as possible as you pull through. If your arms are too close to your sides, what tends to happen is your elbows go down and then you lose that tension, that muscular tension. You lose power, you lose connection, you lose pace. And then the handle should finish at sternum height. So that's where your brass strap or heart rate monitor strap goes around your chest. Bottom of your pectoral muscles, just where your two halves of your rib cage meet. So legs are down, handle is at sternum height, you're tilted backwards, you've still got an engaged core to soak up any momentum sending you backwards. And think about pointing toes towards the front of the machine in order to make sure that your feet are still engaged with the foot plates rather than tugging yourself forwards. Remember, handle away, sit up, forwards tilt. That creates forwards momentum that sends me to the front of the machine when I bend my knees. Again, look at my feet. You'll see I am not tugging on the foot straps. And in fact, can I do it? Yeah. As proof, that's both feet out of the straps. And I'm still on the machine. I'm still rowing at the same pace. Okay? There we go. So that's technique. But since I was talking feet there, let's quickly talk shoes. And what shoes should you wear? The most number one important answer to that is comfortable ones. If you are wearing shoes that are really uncomfortable, you're less likely to row. Or you might get through a half-hour row and suffer. And you're just going to end up hating the rowing machine. So for instance, these Converse, I love rowing in for anything up to about an hour. But once I get past an hour, or maybe like a half marathon, I find the heels get quite uncomfortable. So I tend to change shoes. Now you can, because I'll just change into like standard tennis shoes. My Nike Gatos are good for that. It's a flat sole, maybe a little bit of a heel rise, but kind of quite narrow, flat, comfortable. But if you wear like running shoes, remember there is an element of foam to the sole that when you push into the machine, that foam will compress slightly. Now you're only really robbing yourself of about a half to 1 watt possibly per stroke, as opposed to like bare feet. But if you are currently chasing like 1 second difference, maybe your 2K time right now is 6:30 and you're trying to get down to 6:29, then maybe shoes could be worth looking at. But I'd say anything 7 minutes and slower, it's not the shoes, it's the rower, as in the person in the shoes, not the machine. So that's kind of the answer, but there are other things to look at, like heel cups, or the heels. So these Converse, nice round heels, whereas my Saucony running shoes, they have a pointed heel, and so they're useless for rowing in. Not only because it then creates like a pivot point that my feet constantly kind of move over, but as I do a lot of interval training, especially for high rocks, that pointy heel can get caught in the heel cups as I'm trying to get out. It's a small thing, but it's enough to make me not wear them when I'm rowing. And so, ideally, you want flat, hard soles to get the power in, but comfort is paramount. And so that brings me to barefoot and socks. So, I spent a long time rowing in just socks. I did row a lot barefoot as well, but as being I tend to do most of my training sessions, I film them. I didn't really want to subject you to my feet. There are one or two videos, but mostly it's in socks. And that is the most comfortable I have found. There is a wearing in period where the point where the balls of your foot connect to the plate is lined. So that can be a bit uncomfortable at first. And much like the Converse, your heels in the heel cup can be a bit uncomfortable too. But when I first started rowing in socks, I would row for 5 minutes. It got uncomfortable. I then put shoes on. I then came back the next day, rowed for 7 minutes, put shoes on. Then 10, 15, 20, 30, 40. Much like your backside, but the more time you spend rowing, the less discomfort you'll feel, as in like over multiple sessions. It's the same with bare feet and socks. And then there's no compression. There's no worries about the width of your shoe being too wide for the foot straps. So, as long as you can make sure that you wear in that sensation of rowing in socks or barefoot, it is worthwhile giving it a try. And I mean, the reason I did it was so that I didn't have to worry about taking racing shoes when I was traveling around the world doing 2K races. All right, we're about to hit 21 minutes, and then I will talk gloves as we hit the cool down. One more stroke. All right, if you have any questions about shoes though, do get in touch. I made a video a couple of years back where I tested out various shoes, so you can check that out. So, gloves. Should you wear gloves when you're rowing? This, again, is like the shoes question. It's up to you. But both of these questions, shoes and gloves, are thanks to Pam, one of the YouTube viewers and Facebook group people who emailed me and said, what are your thoughts on? So these are my thoughts on. So gloves, you'll notice I don't wear gloves. I think I did wear gloves when I did my last marathon row, because that was like 3 hours and change, and I knew that my fingers would be unhappy. But day-to-day rowing on concept 2, no need for gloves for me. Now part of that is technique again. So when you have your fingers hooked over the handle with a very, like, hardly any force, I'm literally just hooking, I'm not holding in any way, then all it is a contact point. And then because I keep the handle and wrists relatively flat, there's no rotation to it as I come in, there's hardly any movement of my fingers on the handle. And it's friction, movement, that causes blisters. So if you do like a rotation down, or even like a flick in with your hands, or you come up, pull up high, that's where you're then moving the handle within your hands, causing friction, and that's what creates blisters, okay? And when you compound onto that when you're rowing over however much time, and sweat starts, even with the hooked hands like I've got, which increases airflow, your hands are going to get a bit moist. And when they get a bit moist, they're more prone to getting blisters and cuts and all that kind of stuff because the skin gets softer. So hooking your fingers over is the first port of call here. But I know that that's not really the full thing, that some people just do get calluses and blisters when they row. And again, part of that is just when you start off, it's something that your fingers are not used to, so they can tend to blister up. And the problem is that then the blister you get then forms a callus. So my hands don't particularly have calluses on them, but my left middle finger does, because I was using a different rowing machine that the handle on it was uncomfortable. It was a little bit too rubbery, and it created its own friction just by hanging off it, because I was kind of like, it was softening and then opening. That was creating the friction across the skin that then created a blister down my middle finger. And that has now turned into a callus. It's hard, so it's fine, it's like it's not going to blister again, but certainly if I was a hand model, then this would not be an ideal situation. So if you are at all worried about your hands, then a pair of fingerless gloves could be a good choice. Hang on, I'm going to do 2 more strokes and then I'm going to get into some stretching as we continue talking about gloves. Whoa. Yeah, I mean, luckily it's my left hand. What I wouldn't want is like to go into a business meeting, hey business stuff, hey business, with handshakes and stuff. Go and shake someone's hand and they're like, crikey, is this guy a farmer? All because of rowing. Right, so I'm loosening off the foot stretchers so I can flick my toes back against them. Legs are now straight. There we go. Okay, so legs are straight. Posture's reset, so I'm sitting up at the back here going, what am I doing now? And what I'm doing now is putting hands in the air and then tilting my upper body forwards, making sure to keep flicking those toes back on the foot straps. And this gives me a nice stretch into my hamstrings. So the one thing is, when you are shopping for gloves, is to make sure that, like, fingerless that stop like at the meat of your hand, they're kind of pointless. Like, it'll help with any kind of calluses. I mean, I suppose I do have a little callus there, but on the meat of your hand before your fingers, it'll prevent them. But if they're completely fingerless, then your actual fingers themselves are still going to get blisters. Full-fingered gloves, I'd recommend against, just from a heat point of view. So ideally what you want is ones that kind of come up to past your first, like up to your first knuckle, and you might still, because I still have, going into the second knuckle is where I really blistered up from that handle. I hang on glutes, so one leg up on the rail, and then bring your other foot up and over so that your ankle is in the kind of the curve of your knee, on the opposite side of the knee. And then you've got one knee now in the air, bring that across your body so you have a straight line between your face, knee, foot, and monitor. Hold it in position with the opposite arm, and then rotate your upper body round, and you can rest one hand on the back of the machine for stability, but this should be giving you a nice stretch into this glute. Make sure and keep that knee in position though, for that straight line. If you let the knee open out as you rotate your upper body, you'll completely disengage that stretch. Yeah, so you don't want it full fingered because that's going to be too hot. So you want them to go up as far as possible. I mean, ideally what you want is like the back of the hand to be like as mesh rather than like a big, thick, heavy. It's not really weightlifter's gloves that you're looking for that are built to last from all the force and things. You want something that underneath. You actually do get, let's change legs. You do get rowing, like kind of rowing specific gloves they're kind of gloved on the inside of your palm, but they're open on the back of your palm. So from a heat generation point of view, they're better. But yeah, so just, I mean, if you type in rowing gloves onto Amazon or Google, you'll see a whole bunch of them coming up. And there's nothing wrong with, I mean, there's no judgment. If you turn up and wear gloves, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I prefer not wearing them just again, because I'd hate to be in a position where, like say I was at work and I had a chance to go to the gym and then I'm like, oh, I don't have my gloves with me, so I can't go for a row. I've let an outside force dictate what I'm doing that day, which is again, the shoes thing, is that by rowing in socks, I could go to the gym, just take my shoes off, row in my socks, put my shoes back on, and then I'm going about my day, rather than having like a specific pair of Adidas power lifts that I need to row in. And I can't row in anything else. That then, therefore, either I have to go to the gym with another pair of shoes, or I don't row because I don't have those shoes. I'd never want to be in that position where I let something else dictate. Let's move on to glutes. Quads, John. Quads. Brain. So I'm resting one hand on the monitor, bring one knee up in front of me, hold on to my ankle, pull that ankle behind me so that my heel is now touching my backside. Have I got a shadow on my green screen at the back? I've actually, the green screen behind me, I've actually got my old Concept 2 dyno strength machine is actually here covered in a green sheet, and I think, let's get this right, I think there's a black line, I can see on the monitor, there's a strange black line here, which I think is a shadow. Yeah, I'll try and fix that as I change. Didn't realize that was there. Is that better? If I do that? Does that get rid of it? I know you don't care about this stuff. Or have I just created a whole new one? Right, next, other side. Yeah, I'm trying to sell it, but I think either people have no idea what a Concept 2 dyno is, so they see it on Marketplace and go, that's not a rowing machine. Or it's too old, now that the strength erg is out, people are like, I'd rather have the smaller thing, but thank you very much. Or maybe I've overpriced it. I mean, I've got it on at £250, maybe I should just drop it down to 200. But I'd kind of figured, put it on at 250, you know that everyone's going to get in touch and say, oh, how about 200? So I figured that, but maybe that's a bad idea. If I put it on at 200, everyone will just get in touch and say, how about 150? But at least I'd get shot of it. I mean, it's done me well for, I don't know how long I've had it for. About 8 years, 9 years. So, right, I'm on the floor doing hip flexors. So I'm going to go quickly finish what I was talking about just then, if I can remember what it was. So I've got one foot in front of me, one knee behind me, toes are on the floor, ankles pointing up in the air, round about 90-degree angles on both. It's a little bit off, but you get what I mean. Then upper body, just reset it, maybe breathe in to make sure I'm slightly leaning back now, and now engage this hip flexor, and then I send my upper body forwards by opening up that back leg, but I'm not curling. You can see my upper body has stayed pretty much in the same stupid angle, but I've opened up this back leg, and now my hip flexor up here, not down there, up here, where we were standing up beside the machine just then, that was stretching your quads. Right now we're up here to the hip flexor. And this is that point at the back of the machine as you go into your backwards lean and you tilt forwards again. Your hip flexors are kind of like what engages through that motion. You shouldn't really be tugging yourself forwards with your hip flexors, but they still engage. So it's an idea to stretch them off. And you know what? Just stretching your hip flexors is good anyway. You don't really want tight hips. So same thing on the other legs. Other legs. How many legs has he got on the other side? What was I talking about? I was talking about specific shoes, gloves. Now maybe I was done. I think possibly I had somewhere else to go with that, but was it going to the gym? Yeah, nah. All right. Anyway, oh yeah, that's what it was. Machines. I was talking about things. Don't let outside forces dictate the workout you're going to do today. There's a caveat there when it comes to machines. Now, I've changed, and I'm going to talk machines through this. Like I was saying, this is review week, and so I will at one point talk machines. Maybe tomorrow. I'm also going to talk apps. What my plan is to rotate that app I've got playing in the background. So this week it will be, today we're on Xer, and then tomorrow we'll be on, let's go for erg data tomorrow for the real-time loop, just to mix things up. But machines, so hang on, let's do forearms, hands out to the side, palms facing forwards, clap them in front of you, and then bend your elbows to bring your fingers up to your face, push your hands together, and then bring your thumbs down to sternum height. The only reason I do that is to try and sort out my shoulder, square off my shoulders, but still I could still see my left shoulder was in the air. So anyway, yeah. So I have been to gyms before that, like I used to be a real rowing machine snob that I would only row in a Concept 2. If they didn't have, I let the gym I was a member of, the Village Gym in Glasgow, they got rid of all of the Concept 2s and got skill rows, the Techno Gym things in instead. I quit the gym. And it's the things, so the Techno Gym skill row is a rowing machine, okay? And it lets you get into all the right positions and all that stuff, but I just didn't like rowing on it. I didn't like the monitor would turn off before I even got the phone in my hand to take a screenshot of it and stuff. I just really didn't enjoy rowing on it. And so I knew I could just join a new gym and they had Concept 2s. But I've been to gyms before that have had, like, they've only had a water rower there and I've been like, oh, I don't really want to. But then, I think, was it 2021? I got a water rower, started using that. Let's do shoulders. So hands point straight out in front of you, turn your hand upside down so your palm is facing up, bring that arm across your body, use your other arm to help it come all the way across your body. You should get now get a good stretch into your shoulder. And that was when I started to kind of soften my thing, because I got the water rower. It was to review the Smart Row pulley rather than the machine. And I started to use it and I was like, you know what, I can get into the right positions here. I can get a great workout from it. So actually, just because it's not a Concept 2 and it doesn't have the data of a Concept 2, if it's the workout that matters, then this machine is perfectly functional. And so that then softened. And that's kind of, to be honest, my review of machines. That I don't need to do a separate one now. That's it. As long as you can get good workout, who cares? But I will talk in a bit more detail on one of the workouts. And so that then meant that when I did go into, let's change arms, into like hotel gyms and stuff that didn't have a Concept 2, I wasn't like, oh, well, I'm not rowing today. Like even when I was in Vegas last year, they had one of the Stairmaster Concept 2 clones, which if you wind back like 10 years, it would have been like, hey, I'm not rowing on that. How dare they copy the Concept 2? That's just, being sick in the corner. Whereas last year, I quite happily sat down on it, rowed on it, and kind of judged it, obviously, but but I still got the workout from it. So that's what I'm saying, is you don't want something like not having gloves or not having your specific rowing shoes, all that kind of stuff. You don't want that to get in the way of your workout. There are times, like if you're a runner, you kind of want to wear running shoes when you're running, because otherwise you could end up with injury and stuff. But shoes don't really. So as long as you can, like I say, shoes is about comfort. It's about making sure that so really look at the heels. Nice rounded heel is more preferable. Look at how wide the shoe is, because I've got some, I'm trying to think what running shoes I had. I think it's another pair of Sauconys that I had running ones, and they were actually quite wide. They had like the footbed kind of splayed out slightly, and so they were actually they were annoying to row in because they were too wide and they'd keep on catching up here on the foot plates. And then you get various other things, like there was, I think possibly that exact same pair of shoes, because they were running shoes. The upper mesh wasn't really designed to have any force coming up against it. So as much as I'm saying I'm not pulling myself forwards with the straps or anything, there still is a slight upwards force of your feet against the shoes sometimes. So basically, so my pinky toes would then pop out. I'd basically created holes in those Sauconys. So they were useless for rowing. So there's lots of things like that. There's kind of like wear and tear design. There's the sole, how spongy it is. Does that really make an impact for you? All that kind of stuff. So ideally, if I was to say to anyone what shoes to wear, I'd go for these Converse All-Stars, Chuck Taylors, whatever they're called. These would be, in fact, they're out of vision, aren't they? So hang on. I mean, you've seen my shoes, but there we go. That's the ones that I'd kind of say, go for them first and then kind of move out from there. So, and then gloves, I do have, in fact, I'm going to run off screen. And then I'm going to finish, because I know I'm going over familiar ground. Sorry about my head chopping off. I've got the framing slightly wrong here. Yeah, so I've got these are actually weightlifting gloves. But these are kind of if I was to wear gloves when I was rowing like a longer piece, I'd wear these, but they are kind of like heavy cotton, because they are like weightlifting gloves. They are heavy cotton, so they do get very hot, and they don't come, like if I do that, they don't come far enough up, so they don't actually get past the first meaty part of my finger. So they're not perfect, but if I've got problems with like my palm and stuff, then they're better. What I tend to do, to be perfectly honest, yeah, oh, that went in the box. That one didn't. Is tape. I'll just tape up my fingers. So if when that one had blistered, I just got fabric tape and just taped that around it. And that was enough to keep it in place. So I'd rather tape my fingers than use gloves. There you go. Right, There you go. So I should probably have said that during the actual chat about gloves, but hey. So if you're still rowing, then enjoy the rest of your row. Maybe you've just been rowing through this stretch and you're about to stop when I say goodbye. So in which case, that's beautifully timed. Who knows what you've done today? Let me know in the comments below. Get in touch either via email to info@rowalong.com or the Facebook group, or like I said, comments below. Make sure and check out the hundreds of workouts I've got up here. Lots of varied ones. This RowAlong daily workout is always just a low intensity row, okay? But I've got hundreds of intervals and whatever up here, and there's planned ones and not planned versions and stuff. So loads of stuff. I've got like over 800 workouts up here, so you'll find something that you'll enjoy, hopefully. Yeah, and the review videos, I'm going to post one later today about the Merak R50 Aura, the upgraded kind of R50, which basically just the spoiler for that one is don't buy it, buy the cheaper version. So anyway, right, and I'm done. So make sure, have something to eat, have something to drink, have a shower, maybe in a different order, and then tell someone you love them. Find someone that you know that it means something to, and tell you they love them. Or if it's someone from your past that maybe are no longer with you, then you can think about them and go, oh, I loved you. Whatever, just like open your heart, have a moment of softness. Okay, I think right now we've got quite hard as a planet, so let's just soften off a little bit and just show some love. Hey, okay, I'll end up being like the Beatles. I'll be like Ringo Starr soon. Hey, peace and love, baby, peace and love. Every time if I'm driving and I have a little moment of road rage and use a naughty swear word and that, I always think, what if I was about to crash the car and the last thing I said was what I just said to that driver? So I'll tend to kind of I'll go, "Rrr," but then I'm going to go, peace and love as I'm driving. Anyway, so peace and love, baby. I will see you in the next workout. Until then, row well, be well.